Hola queridos seguidores de YouTube, ¿cómo están? ¿Qué me cuentan? Pues aquí estamos haciendo un nuevo video para nuestro canal de YouTube y es acerca de la segunda parte de este Tribeca Film Festival. Hace un año estuvimos acá en este mismo sitio. Y ya han cambiado varias cosas, por ejemplo el logo nuevo, que es diferente, pero ya con otro estilo diferente al del año pasado. Va a venir diferentes actores como el actor de Beetlejuice y Spock Lee. Va a haber una presentación ahorita a las 8:30, entonces va a estar súper chévere, súper genial. Va a haber muchas sorpresas. No quise estar todo en el festival porque me parece muy cansado. Decidí ya estar en poquitas cosas. El jueves es algo espectacular porque viene uno de los directores favoritos míos, Steven Spielberg, con su película Schindler's List, que seguro estoy escuchando que la van a cambiar, o sea, tiene un cambio bastante interesante la película, así que va a venir bastante grande el jueves, así que el de jueves vamos a grabar suficiente, así que no, espero que les guste este video y suscríbanse a mi canal. No les muestro todo porque el año pasado estuvimos ya recorriendo este sitio y eso es como lo mismo, pues, lo único que cambió fue el título nada más. Stories es lo único que ha cambiado, pero pues lo otro sigue igual. Lo interesante dónde va a ser ahorita la conversación, eso no lo sé todavía. El año pasado lo vi en inglés, ahorita lo estoy diciendo en español. Un cambio diferente, pues, para que ustedes conozcan un poco de Tribeca. Tribeca Film Festival es un festival de cine donde se presentan todos los actores famosos, directores famosos. El año pasado estuvo súper genial y este año me gustó porque tuve la oportunidad de conocer a Antonio Banderas y esta vez voy a conocer a mí se me olvidan a mí los nombres ya. Que se puede sígame en Instagram. Sígame en Instagram ahorita mismo.
Either twos or threes in that single file. We're going to try to bring more people off the sidewalk.
Me hicieron correr un poquito más. No sé por qué. De todos modos, síganme en Instagram. Se llama JFis-New York. No se alcanza a ver con el teléfono ahorita mismo. Son cosas que pasan aquí grabando. Síganme en Instagram ahorita mismo. Estoy poniendo todo lo que está pasando. Todo lo que está pasando ahorita. Que también puse algo de México. A ver si me enfoca. Puse algo de México que la verdad que es un poco triste. Es un poco triste de lo que está pasando en México, que eso lo voy a dejar en un video, pues la verdad es un poco espantoso que hayan matado a estos cineastas que simplemente estaban estudiando y que simplemente estaban haciendo una filmación o algo, y llegan unos tipos y los matan sin razón y sin lógica. Me parece algo espantoso, algo horrible, algo como filmador y como director de cine. O sea, un estudiante como yo que estoy estudiando cine y que tengo esta cámara, o sea, no me lo creo, pues que uno llegue a filmar y que te cojan a ti y te hagan daño. Es espantoso, y estar en este mismo sitio en festivales, o sea, es horrible, es más fuerte el sentimiento, porque son filmadores, son gente que le gusta hacer historias como yo. O sea, estar en ese sitio es más profundo, es más triste. O sea, yo me siento muy triste porque estar aquí en ese sitio, aquí en un festival, es profundo, es triste. Pero bueno, vamos a hacer un video acerca de eso, un tributo a todas las personas que han muerto, esos 3 estudiantes. Se lo merecen porque hicieron lo que a ellos les gustaba, que era filmar. Así que lo voy a dejar. A ver, todavía no hemos continuado los ascensores. Vamos a ver qué sucede. Solamente esperen lo que pasa. Okay, adiós.
Welcome Alec Baldwin and Spike Lee.
Hello. Is Brooklyn in the house? What about Strong Island? Is Strong Island in the house?
What is this murky drink we have here? Can I drink this? That's good. What kind of household you grew up in, and what was the whole TV movie dynamic in terms of your viewing and your consumption of that kind of stuff when you were a child?
Well, I never knew that you could even make a film growing up. I grew up in the Republic of Brooklyn. We were the first black family to move into Cobble Hill, which is a predominantly Italian-American neighborhood because Cobble is right by the docks, and the docks were Italian-American. And we got called nigger a couple of times first week, but once my friends saw there weren't 100 other black families moving in behind me, then we were just cool after that. So it was nothing after that. And then my mother decided we got to stop paying rent, so we bought a brownstone on Fort Greene for $45,000. They go for $4 million now.
What year was that?
68.
Right when my father's parents passed away. My father grew up in Fort Greene on St. James Place in Fulton Street.
Yeah. So,
I remember you now. You were a pain in the ass then, too. Yeah. I couldn't get you on the phone back in 68 either. What's the first movie you saw on the big screen?
The first movie I can remember, my mother took me to see, real quick, my father hated movies, but he loved sports. I got my love for sports from my father. My mother loves movies, but since my father hated movies, I was my mother's movie date. The first film I can remember, my late mother take me to, she took me for Easter Sunday, Racing Music Hall. We saw Bye Bye Birdie.
So where's my wife? That cracks me up.
And here's the thing, though. That film impacted me so much, I even know it. The opening credit sequence from Do the Right Thing, Rosie Perez dancing, that came from Bye Bye Birdie.
Really?
And Margaret. That's where it came from. I must have been like 7, 8 years old. But it just came out of nowhere.
I mean, this is a cliche, I guess, but did that do something to you? The first time you saw a movie on a big screen, did you sit there and go, wow?
Yeah, but I didn't want to it's not like, at that moment,
You weren't hit by lightning.
But it was not, who makes a movie?
Right. So,
growing up, I wanted to play second base for New York Mets, but genetics conspired against that happening. That's what. So I did not grow up wanting to be a filmmaker, but I remember my mother taking me to see Mean Streets.
Wow.
I remember when Bonnie and Clyde came out, I said, "Can I go?" She said, "I'm not taking you." I went to see Bonnie and Clyde. I had nightmares for 2 weeks because up to that point, there was never violent shown like that. And that shook me for 2 weeks.
That was groundbreaking.
Right, Arthur Penn. But the reason why I chose On the Waterfront, besides it's one of the greatest films ever, is because I became very friendly with Bud Schulberg, the great, great Bud Schulberg.
Where did you first meet him and where?
I called him up. You know, back then, you call people up. I called Stanley Donen up. I called Kazan up. You get people on the phone.
People don't realize how much that happens in this business.
And,
True.
you know, I was a young filmmaker, so, you know, and in fact, I called Billy Wilder up. He said, "Come on over."
You and
I was in
Cameron
LA.
Crowe.
And every time I go, I have people, I got my posters too. So I got my posters, you know, the sign. But Bud and I, we worked on a script together, and Bud lived to be 94 or 5. But when he was 90, we wrote a script together called Save Us Joe Louis, about this relationship between Joe Louis and Max Schmeling. And in the last 2 years of life, he would call me every week and say, "Spike, did you get the money yet? Did you get the money yet?" Because I had promised him that I was going to make this film before he passed. So I'm going to make that promise happen. But we just couldn't get together. But it's amazing. It's an epic. Has Hitler, Goebbels, FDR, Eleanor Roosevelt, Lena Horne, Joe Louis, Max Schmeling, Sugar Ray Robinson. I mean, it's we're going to get it done one day.
How the same is in my life, where I would watch movies, and I thought that movie stars were harvested on another planet and they flew them down here or something. You know, the idea that myself or anybody like me could get into the movie business was just absurd, you know, to me. And when did that change for you? Meaning, when did movie making become a direction that you wanted to set sail in?
Oh, when I went to college, I went to Morehouse College in Atlanta, Georgia, and my first 2 years, my first 2 years, I was a C plus D minus student.
What was your major?
I didn't have a major
Right.
at that point. And so before second semester ended, the end of my sophomore year, it was time to go back to New York. For the summer, my advisor told me I had to choose a major when I come back in the fall. And I said, why? And my advisor said, because you have exhausted all your electives. So I came back to New York, and it was the infamous summer 1977. The Yankees won the World Series, the first summer disco. The heat was horrible, therefore you had the blackout. And you had David Berkowitz.
Right, I was going to say.
Son of Sam. So it's amazing, many years later, I co-wrote a script with Michael Priol and Victor Colocchio called Summer Sam. But anyway, New York City was broke that summer. There's a famous Daily News front page.
Forward to New York, drop dead.
There you go. Up to that point, if you had your worker's permit, you could get a job doing something. But there were no jobs in New York City. And I didn't want to spend the whole summer playing Stratomatic baseball on my stoop. So I have still my friend today, her name is Vieta Johnston. She was very smart. If you go to Stuyvesant, you had to be smart. The test for New York City was Brooklyn Tech, Science, and Stuyvesant. Brooklyn Tech was down the block from me. Here, Science and Stuyvesant. She got she was smart. So one day, and I swear my mother's grave, this was not a mistake. I was sitting on my stoop, nothing to do, and the spirit told me, go see Vieta. So I went to her house. She lived at University Towers on Willoughby and Ashland, across the street from LIU. So she's studying the whole summer. And so there's a box in the corner of the room. And I said, what's that? She said, that's a Super 8 camera. You can have it. I said, what's the other box? She said, that's the cartridge of the Super 8 that goes into the thing. Says, you can have it. I'm going to be a doctor, so I don't need this. She is a doctor now. She went to Princeton undergrad and went to Harvard Med School. So that was not a mistake for me to go to Vieta's house that day.
You can say that again.
So now I had something to do. So I spent the whole summer not trying to be a filmmaker, but just shooting stuff. So I shot The Blackout. It was the first summer disco, so every weekend there was a block party and DJs would hook them their turntables and speakers to the thing. And then it was just a crazy summer. So I came back to school in the fall and declared my major. I was a mass communications major. Now Morehouse didn't have that major, so I took mass communications across the street at Clark College. So you had Spelman, Morehouse, Clark College, Atlanta University, and Morris Brown. These are all black institutions, really in the same area in Atlanta. And there's a teacher there, there's a professor, his name is Dr. Herb Eichelberger, still teaching there. And I told him, I had this film, I just shot some footage, I don't know what to do with it. He said, you make a film with it. So mass communications quickly was film, TV, journalism, and broadcast. And he said, make a documentary of the film. The film ended up being called Last House on Brooklyn. I worked all semester on it, and then many times when he had the key to the film lab, and twice a week he would stay extra, so I could spend another 4 hours editing, and he wasn't getting paid for it either, extra.
Why do you think he did that?
He saw something in me I didn't see.
Right. What did he see in you that you didn't see?
I don't know. I never asked him. But
You were hungry.
I was hungry, but that teachers are so important. I mean, I think you go to
Somebody
anything.
giving you a hand, pulling
Yes,
you up,
that's why I teach now.
mentoring you.
That's why I teach now.
Now, explain that, by the way, because I mean, I don't want to just kiss your butt here all day, all night long, but because that's very easy to do. No, I mean, listen, I don't want to get emotional here, but like in this business, there's just something. I mean, you look at people who are talented, and you really, it humbles you. It quiets you. You know, this man is one of the greatest movie makers of the last 50 or 75 years in this country.
Thank you. Thank you.
This man's one of the greatest filmmakers alive.
Public, I always say this. Parents kill more dreams than anybody. So specifically, if those dreams that their children have to do with the arts. So I grew up in a very artistic family, so when I told everybody I wanted to be a filmmaker, nobody said, get the fuck out of here, you're crazy, no black filmmakers. You know, Melvin's not around anymore, wasn't making films. Ozzy Davis, Oscar Show been dead for many, many years, but I only got encouragement. And so often, when a child or a young adult tells their parents, you know what are you gonna major in? Poetry, ballet, dance, photography, whatever it is, they're like, now if they're black parents, it goes like this. As long as your monkey ass is black, living in my house, wearing my clothes, eating my food, we didn't take out a second mortgage of the house. And I mean, they got some points, you know?
In my house, that played out like this. I'm going to GW to study political science. I go up to New York. Long story, but I go by audition for the acting program, and I get accepted. And I'm going to go to the NYU acting program. And I explained to my parents how it's actually going to cost less for me to go to NYU, even though it's more expensive school, because I re-qualify for all this New York State-based loans and scholarships, you know, Regent scholarship things that I forfeited when I went to Washington. So I call my family, and I say, I'm going to leave GW, I'm not going to go to law school, I'm going to go to NYU and study acting. And my mother, I mean, she screamed like like Jamie Lee Curtis in a horror movie. She was like, my mother was like, are you out of your mind? Are you insane? She's screaming. And I go, no, I go, listen, I go, it's going to cost you guys less money. And my father goes, let's hear him out. Let's just hear him out. When I explained it was less dough to my dad, he was like, okay, now let's just talk this through and see about what he's presenting here. But now your films, because we are going to run out of time eventually, your films obviously deal with a lot of themes of, I'll let you say what those themes are. I don't want to use cliches like racial injustice and so forth and struggle, but are themes that are in your own films, are themes that are in some of or many of your films, are they in Waterfront as well?
Are they what?
Are they in Waterfront as well?
Yeah, I was on Anderson Cooper when this whole thing was happening with Kaepernick, and I watched on the Waterfront again for the millionth time. And the stuff that Kaepernick was saying was the same stuff that Marlon Brando was saying. I want my rights. And you can see the mob was the NFL owners. Because when you have the shape up, they had the things the guy was giving out. And here's a motherfucker here. In the scene, to get on the work, the guy, the steward, whatever, he has to give you like a coin. And so after Marlon Brando, Terry Malloy testifies against Johnny, Lee J. Cobb.
Yeah, Johnny Friendly.
Johnny Friendly. He says, fuck it, I'm going back to work. So he's standing there, and they're giving out a coin to everybody. And then there's nobody there, and there's some rummy, some bum.
Yeah.
Who has his hands over
a fire.
You
want to work?
And they put in. And so I'm saying the NFL, these motherfuckers hire motherfucking quarterbacks who are horrible. So what they did to Terry McLaurin, they're doing to Kaepernick. I don't want to say the guy's name, the guy had retired. Chicago Bears quarterback.
Go ahead, say his name.
He retired.
They're all looking on
He
Google right
retired.
now.
They took him out of retirement, gave him a $10 million contract. He was horrible. And Kaepernick still can't get a job. So it was amazing. I mean, Bud Schilberg was a visionary. And when I saw what they were doing to Terry Malloy, it was the same thing the NFL was doing to Kaepernick. And Kaepernick said, I know my rights. Terry Malloy, I want my rights.
In this wheel of my life where CBS was going to pay people big money to do these MOWs, the old MOW. We were going to do. I did Streetcar on Broadway, which we wound up doing on for TV. No.
No, you rock that.
But we do Streetcar on Broadway. We do it on TV, but that was a waste of time. But they paid everybody a lot of money. But like, why do it for TV when it's in the movie, his movie? And so I go see him because they want to do Cat on a Hot Tin Roof, and they want him to play Big Daddy, but they're not going to insure him. Long story short, as I go to his house, this is a true story. I go to his house up on Mulholland, and I go there to beg him to do Cat on a Hot Tin Roof if they will ultimately insure him, which they wouldn't. And I mean, I'll do my tepid Brando impersonation, but I said. One thing led to another. I had lunch with him for 4 hours, and I said, I did Streetcar on Broadway. It was like 6 or 7 years before. And he said, I heard about that from some friends of mine that you did that. I heard you were very good in it, yes, and I heard you were very funny. And I wish I had done more of that because it's a very funny part, and the character of Stanley is very funny. And I wish I'd found more of the humor myself. And there's a pause, and I went, but it worked out pretty well for you just to say it, wouldn't you say? I mean, it went okay, don't you think? For how it went over, for the public. And but it's. Yeah, I met him just that one time, and but you see, he's interesting to me because there's a couple guys. I mean, I'm going to talk briefly about it from the actor's standpoint, which I can't help. But Pacino was obviously a big beacon for me, and there's those moments. There's always a moment. John Randolph is in the hospital, and Serpico's got the bullet hole in his face, and John Randolph puts the gold shield on him, and he doesn't want the gold shield to become a detective. And finally, he gets it, and Pacino just erupts into this momentary sob, this gasp of agony for just a moment of his suffering. And I just thought to myself, if this is why I want, Al made me want to be an actor as much as anybody. Pacino was the one. That made me want to become an actor. Well, he was one of them, Yeah, Dog Day, Serpico was one of my favorites. But, and Brando too, but Brando, of course, gets into that zone where he doesn't care. He's a prodigy, and he puts all the pieces together when he's 24 years old. Brando did Streetcar on Broadway when he was 24. I did it when I was 34. I've seen guys, I think it was like Tony, some actor, I forget, he was a famous actor from before he did it when he was like 40. And my point is that Brando, he started to, care less. And what you see is this guy who has this, it goes without saying, this abundance of gifts. I always say that for male actors, depending on what the part requires. I mean, if you're going to play Harvey Milk, maybe it's a different story. But that for most roles I've seen that I was approached about, you have to have that intersection of masculinity, sensitivity, and intelligence. You have to have or masculinity, regardless of your sexuality, I should say. And so it's like, and Brando had those things in abundance in all three categories, beyond anybody ever,
Can you make the segue to Montgomery?
Right. And well, that's a different, right. And so a different kind of masculinity. And my point is that Brando, here is the apex. Here is Brando, all 12 cylinders of Brando firing in this film. Everything he brought to bear. Brando at his greatest, all his gifts on display, great script, great role, and Brando, who later on just sent up acting and hated acting and just was somebody I didn't admire later on in his career. Then he pulled it out again and do Godfather and so forth. But this Waterfront is the sine qua non of his career in terms of acting, I think.
I never met him.
You never did?
He called me up 2 o'clock in the morning. And I'm not going to do imitation, but he wanted me to do a film about Native Americans.
Right.
And I never heard from him after that. Well, and then I found out later he would call people. Well, he's in L.A., but anyway, he would call people. I mean, even in L.A., he would call people late. But somebody got my number, and I didn't believe it was him at first, but he says me.
Now, what do you do when you direct a film? Because they always say that the directors, then and now, it's always been the same, that they cast well. You try your best to get who you want for the role. You have a dream cast, and you try to get them in terms of their availability and their desire to be in the film, and can you afford them, and so all those things come together, which I want you to speak about for people to understand what an extraordinarily difficult thing that is to do. Meaning you're going to make a film. Spike Lee is going to make a film, and you can have anybody in your film. People are begging to work with you, and sometimes you don't get who you want in the film. True?
Well, since we are here at the Tribeca Film Festival, the role of Sal, I offered to Mr. De Niro. And he wanted to do it.
That son of a bitch.
No, I think Daniel, he got nominated. And I think that, I love Bob, and I want him in my film. But next year, it'll be 30 years since we did it. And you can see that De Niro might have tilted, because it's really meant to be.
Everything turned out the way it was meant to turn out.
Yeah, but it was meant to be a ensemble piece. Do the right thing. I mean, you had Turturro. I mean, everybody was in it, but no one was really.
Richard Edson.
The great Ruby Dee, Ozzie Davis.
You.
No, but Samuel Jackson. He was Sam back then.
Giancarlo
Esposito. Rosie Perez, that's her first film. It's Martin Lawrence's first film. Robin Harris's first film. The late Robin Harris. So, it's been my experience. Things happen, for the most part, the way it should be, because that's not the only time where I wanted someone, and I didn't get them, and it turned out for the best, because I got somebody who just fit better. So it's like a sports team, you know. I remember one year the Lakers had like 5 all-stars starting. They were terrible because there was no chemistry, and everybody's gonna be starting. Everybody can't be like. It just needs to come together as a whole.
It's interesting because you hear that across the board. You have an ensemble of people, and if you change one little thing, it would upset the whole movie.
Off the rails.
Now, without naming names, because one of my goals isn't to embarrass anybody, but when you make films as a director, and your films are dramas, they're acting is at the fore. You don't do action films and space movies and all this other crap. No, I'm sorry, I didn't mean that. What I meant was, because we love space movies, let's face it. Some space movies are great. But when you're directing, what is directing performance for you now? Because, like, you bring these people in, and you bring people who are going to play the role, and you assume they're pretty good to go. But what happens when it's not working? How involved? Are you involved in, like, walking up to people and taking them aside and going, hey, man, this is what I need in this scene?
Yeah, but you can't. That has to be done, in a whisper. If you do that, I felt, I can only speak for myself, that you're gonna lose the actor.
So describe what you mean. For example, what do you mean you're gonna lose them? How?
They're gonna check out.
Even if you take them aside and do it?
No, I'm saying it has to be done
private. Exactly. I agree with you. All notes should be private.
So here's the thing, though. You try to head that stuff off in rehearsal, because you can't be on the script talking about character. You can't be on the day while you're shooting. 100 people, crew members, and you're discussing the character and the arc, all that stuff. That stuff has to be worked out in rehearsal. It has to be worked out in rehearsal. Mm-hmm. Any problems, anything else, whatever has to be addressed, I try to work it out in rehearsal. But sometimes, whether I'm having a bad, they're acting having a bad day, things that happen, you just try to go through it. But I make sure that at the end when we're done that we talk. So you gotta work that shit out so it's squashed, done with, and you could continue, you know, in just in good spirits.
Now I want to ask you. That's my question.
Yeah.
Give me an example, or maybe he's one, producers who actually contribute and help you make the movie you want to make.
Well, Marvin bought the rights to the autobiography of Malcolm X as told by Alex Haley. I mean, really, really many years ago. And he'd been trying to make it. Sid Lumet, a whole bunch of people. One time Richard Pryor was supposed to play him. And he said he sent me letters saying you want to be involved in this film. So I never got the letters. So then I was reading in the papers that Denzel Washington was going to play Malcolm X. He'd already done the play off Broadway, When Chickens Come Home to Roost. And the director was going to be Norman Jewison. And I said to myself, hold the fuck up. And Norman, great director, In the Heat of the Night. I mean, he's done many, many fine films. And I just began to talk about it a little bit, and then then Marvin Worth called me and said, Spike, stop talking. Let's have you and Norman sit down. And so we met. I mean, this is not a new story. It's old. And Norman wanted to know why I wanted to do it, and I told him, and he gracefully said, okay. He did not have to do that. He had the gig. He was the director. He was the one that Marvin Worth chose, and also Warner Brothers. So I've always had big respect for Mr. Jewison because he could have said, fuck you, Spike. I don't care who you are. I'm directing this film.
But there are producers. This is, I guess, what my question is, because a lot of people, that's an intangible for a lot of people, what producers do, beyond, as they say, bringing a vital element to the table, the script, the star, the money from the studio. They've got the juice with the studio, what have you. But there are producers who they've helped you make your film. They've contributed to make your
Marvin, there's no way possible I've been involved. I would have directed Malcolm X without the late, great Marvin Worth.
I went to a screening. Marvin invited me to a screening at the Academy not the DGA, but the Academy, one of the great screening rooms in all of Los Angeles, which is saying a lot. And we went to that screening of Malcolm X there, and I got to say, it's one of your greatest films. That's a great film, Malcolm X. Well, great film. You did a great job.
All that goes to Mr. Denzel Washington. I know we're talking about other films. I have to just say this real quick because tomorrow I'm going to see Denzel Washington. They had the opening of The Iceman Coming. 4:30 curtain call.
Yeah. It's like a 9-hour play, right? Yeah.
Not that long.
Right.
But people ask me all the time, Denzel, we did Mo Better, Malcolm X, He Got Game, Inside Man. So it's been a minute. But Denzel, people ask me about his performance. He prepared a year before. He told his agent, I forgot his name, he just died recently, but he said, don't give me any more work. He took a year to prepare for that role. Learn to pray in Arabic, speak in Arabic, learn to read the Quran, cut out pork, cut out alcohol, because Denzel understands that just sounding like somebody or looking like that's just surface. And he knew that if he did the job that needed to be done, that Malcolm's spirit will come into him.
Yeah.
And I put my hand on a stack of Bibles. There was a scene, this is not the first time I've said this, the scene, all the speeches in the film were Malcolm's words. And there was one speech, he was killing it. And my great cinematographer, Ernest Dickerson, so Then D's doing his thing, and I'm looking at him. I got the monitor here. I'm looking at Ernest right here. There's several cameras. I'm going to stand next to Ernest. He used a camera. And so I see that the scene, I'm looking at the sides, and the scene is about to end. So I'm getting ready to call a cut. And he keeps going. And we were shooting film, 1,000-foot mag. And he went on for another 2 minutes. And finally Ernest said, Spike, we ran out. So I woke up to Denzel. He's almost like in a daze. I said, D, what was that? I said, what were you doing? He said, Spike, I don't know. He said, I can't tell you what I just said. That was the spirit of Malcolm. But that shit can't happen if you don't prepare for it. He worked a year.
Yeah, he was ready.
And as anybody was on the set that day, we were pinching ourselves. We thought we saw Malcolm in front of us.
These people. And with that in mind, would you all please join me in thanking our guest, one of the greatest movie makers in history.
Thank you. Thank my man right here.
Spike Lee.
Thank you. Thank you.
Two, 1, 2.